Hey folks, this is Eugene from Easy Automations. And if you're an online coach like me who uses Calendly to allow your clients to book coaching sessions with you directly, and if you use Zoom to record these coaching sessions, then you will find this tutorial super magical and super useful. Because what I will show you is how you can take those recordings, transfer them to your Google Drive, then summarize them and issue guided and directed coaching notes to your clients. Now, before we get into the weeds of the tutorial, let's answer two questions that I will anticipate most of you will ask. Question number one, why not just use the links that Zoom sends out and share those with your clients? There's nothing inherently wrong with doing that. The only problem is that Zoom obviously likes to store the meetings in their own cloud, but they will charge you an arm and a leg for that service. So it's better to copy those meetings from your Zoom cloud into your Google Drive, and then you can save a ton on storing those meetings inside the Zoom cloud. Now the second question is, well, why can't I just use some sort of software that will dial into the same meeting, record the same meeting, and then issue automated meeting summaries? So there's software out there that will dial into your meetings and then they will transcribe the meeting and summarize the key points out of the meeting. The problem with that software is that that software doesn't know the type of the meeting that you're running. So it will produce exactly the same summary for an online community event as well as for a coaching session. You are the only person who actually knows which parts of the coaching session you want to summarize, which is why you would want a summary to actually be guided by you and not generic or automated by some sort of software that has no idea what's actually going to be happening in that meeting. Okay, so without further delay, let's get into it. Okay, folks, so now let's talk about the software that we're going to be using for this tutorial. Now, first things first, I'm going to be using the software that I'm familiar with and I can vouch for and I can recommend. But it doesn't mean that you have to use exactly the same software. In fact, you can recreate the same automation using many different substitutes, but my choices are dictated by the software that I'm familiar with. And that's why, for example, for the meeting scheduler, I'm going to be using Calendly. Is Calendly the only meeting scheduler out there? And is it the only one that you can use? No, that is the one that I'm using. And that's why we're going to be using Calendly for this automation. Now, we're going to assume that your clients book you through Calendly and that your meetings take place with Zoom. So obviously you need an account with Zoom. Now, from what I can tell, you probably need paid accounts with both Calendly and Zoom if you want to use their integration features. But I'm assuming that if you have a successful coaching business, hopefully, then investing in paid accounts with these amazing platforms is money well spent. Then the next thing we need some sort of cloud database. And when I mean cloud database, I'm just saying you need access to a Google account so you can create a Google Sheet. Now, you need a Google Sheet or anything else like that. You can use Airtable, Readtable, anything else, because you need to log all the Calendly meetings that you will then be having Zoom recorded and then transcribed and sent to your customers, because neither Zoom nor Calendly hold all of the information that we will need for our automation for it to work. So for example, Calendly stores the email address of your client and also the meeting ID of the Zoom, but it doesn't hold the links to the meeting recordings. Only Zoom holds them. So we need to connect the two pieces of data. We need to connect the information that Calendly has about your meeting and the information that Zoom has about your meeting together. And that's why we need an intermediary. And in cases like these, your intermediary has to be database. And in this case, Google Sheets is more than enough. But again, if you base your business out of Airtable, Readtable, or any other cloud databases, you can use them as well. Okay, then you need an account with a piece of software that will be transcribing your recordings. I'm using Deepgram. Deepgram's amazing. I've been super impressed with their transcription quality, and they don't limit the size of the file that you can feed into them, and they also download your meeting recordings from any cloud storage, including Zoom's cloud storage. So Deepgram's been amazing, but if you prefer to use someone else, you can. Then you need an account with Openai, and specifically you need an account with their API, not just with ChatGPT+. Because surprise, surprise, we're going to be using GPT to summarize the transcripts that Deepgram generates before we send them to your clients along with the recording. Now, can you use a different large language model to transcribe your meetings? Yes, in theory you can, but you need to use something that has a large context window. And in this case, OpenAI's GPT has a model that's called GPT 3.5 16K, which means that it takes 16,000 tokens as its context, and that is more than enough to feed the entire transcript of an hour, even an hour and a half coaching session, and ask it to summarize it with a short email of, let's say, 10 bullet points or so. So if you do want to use a different language model to do this, then you probably want to use something like Claude or anything else that has a large context window. From what I can tell, it's literally between GPT 3.5 16K and Claude with 100,000 token limit. Obviously, unless you want to use GPT 32K, which is extremely expensive and probably not required for this case. So for this automation, we're going to be using OpenAI. So get yourself an account if you don't have it already, and add some money or add a payment method, because you're going to be spending some money with them together with us. Okay, so the last thing that you need to pick is an integration platform. So you could use Zapier, you can use Make, Active Pieces, anything you want. But for this particular integration, we're going to be using Pabbly Connect. Now, Pabbly Connect is an amazing Zapier alternative. It's being run by this amazing chap called Niraj. He's incredible. He answers all the questions on his Facebook group. His support team is incredible. And these guys run a super deal where for a lifetime investment, you can buy a lifetime plan with them, where they're going to give you 20,000 tasks per month. And these tasks, they don't include triggers, and they don't include most of the internal apps, where Pabbly team gives you all these tasks for free. So it's a super deal, and Pabbly is amazing. And that's why we're going to be using Pabbly for this integration. If you've never heard about Pabbly, there's a link here underneath the title of this video, and it's an affiliate link. So if you do end up signing up, I'm going to get a little something from Pabbly, but your price will not be higher. Okay, cool. So without further delay, let's get into building this automation together. Okay, so the first thing that you want is to set up your spreadsheet that will hold all the data that you need to run this automation. So I've created here a simple spreadsheet. I called it Coaching Automation Test, and these are the headers that you will need. The first one is customer email, which is the email of your client that's going to come from Calendly. Then client name, not essential for this automation, but it's also always useful to log. Zoom meeting ID is the ID of the meeting that Zoom will create for your Calendly meeting. We will need this to be able to retrieve the recordings later on, so you need to log this. Zoom download link, not essential for this automation, but just in case you need it, you can log it. Transcript, again, a transcript is not something that is essential for the automation to run, but in case the automation has errors, and a lot of automations do down the line, you will want to store the transcript of the meeting. Also, in case you want to start deleting the meeting recordings at some point in time in order to save space in your Google Drive, you may want to retain the transcripts of the meetings so that you can send those to clients. The summary is what GPT will generate based on this transcript, so you want to store that as well. And then Deepgram ID, just add this one, and I'll tell you why you'd need this field later on. Okay, so this one is done. Now let's go into Pabbly and let's start building this automation. So first thing in Pabbly that I suggest you do is you create a folder. So I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call it Coaching Automation Test. It's always good to organize your workflows in folders. That way they're going to be super neat. Okay, then the next thing you do once you've created the folder, you need to create a workflow. Let's call this workflow Calendly meeting logger. And so what this workflow will do is it will begin when there is a meeting that's scheduled to Calendly. So for the trigger, let's type in Calendly. And the trigger event is invitee created for the user. So that would be you. Click connect. And here Pabbly will offer you to establish a connection with Calendly in case you haven't done so yet. So I already have a connection with Calendly, so I'm going to use it. But if you don't, just click on add new connection. Okay, so here you need to test your trigger. So the trigger is, as we said, when a new meeting is created. So here, just click on test request. I already have some data here, but if you're building this for the first time, you're not going to have any data in Pabbly. So let's send some data. How do we send some data to Pabbly? We will create a meeting and we're going to schedule a meeting with ourselves. So here in Calendly, I have created a one-to-one event, and I called it the coaching automation test. And as you can see, I connected my Zoom account with Calendly. And if you haven't, then you can do this under the integration bit. Essentially, you just need to create a meeting, an event, or if you already have the event created, that's fine. But usually what I'm trying to do is when I'm building these automations for the testing purposes, while you're testing it, just create a different meeting and test the automation using this meeting so that you don't have to use your live event, which also probably has a payment attached to it. And then by changing a simple filter down the line, you'll be able to flick the automation to run when it is your actual main coaching event that's being triggered. So let's schedule an event with ourselves. So there we go. I'm going to put a meeting in my calendar, 8 p.m. I'm just going to use a fake name, and I'm going to use my own email address. And I'm going to hit schedule event. And so the event has been scheduled. Now let's go back to Pabbly. Pabbly has captured the data from Calendly. And the data here that we will need is the email address of the client. So that's my email address in this case. And then we're going to need the location ID. So let me show you what I mean. If we go into, we scroll down, we find this line here. It says res2 resource location data ID. So this is the Zoom meeting ID that it has created for you, and we will need this information. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need Pabbly to log this into our Google Sheet. Okay, so let's do it. So as an app for your action, choose Google Sheets. So the action here is to add a new role. Click connect. Now I don't have a connection established with Google Sheets because I've actually never used Google Sheets before. So let's do it. So I'm going to call it Easy Automations Google Account. So I'm just going to pause the recording here. If you need to go with this workflow, it's very simple. So connect your Google account and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so I have connected my Google account and let's set up this action step. So spreadsheet, coaching automation test. Actually, that's correct. That's correct. But in case you have other spreadsheets in your account, just make sure that you select the right account. Select sheet, sheet number 1. Yep, I did not name this sheet. You might want to do this, but for now it's sheet number 1. So that is actually correct. Then customer email. Okay, well, let's map some data. So let's grab some data from Calendly, from that event that was scheduled. And let's add this one, res3 resource email. So that is the customer email. Boom, so that's done. Client name, let's have a look. Well, my name is going to be pretty funny here. So Calendly doesn't actually log first name and last name. It's just going to log the whole name. So there it is, Napoleon. That's me, by the way, in case you were wondering. Zoom meeting ID, okay? So that is the location bit. Now, to find stuff very quickly here, just type in location. And that is the meeting ID within Zoom. Okay, nothing else. There's nothing else that we need in here. So let's just save and test this request. And if everything goes fine, you should have the data for this meeting appearing in your Google spreadsheet. So let's go back to our Google spreadsheet and lo and behold, there it is. We've got my email address, we've got my amazing name, and we've got the Zoom meeting ID. Cool. So that is done. Now, the other thing that we need to do is, say, for example, if you have a coaching client that decides to delete the meeting, or you cancel the meeting on their behalf, or say if they want to reschedule the meeting. So for that, we need another workflow. And that workflow is going to delete meeting records from your Google Sheet. Okay, so let's go back to that folder and let's create another workflow which will delete meetings from your Google Sheet. Okay, so I'm in my folder and I'm going to create another workflow. So let's call this one Calendly meeting deleter. I don't know if that is a name, but we're going to use that. And so the trigger event here, again, let's look for Calendly. And the event will be invitee canceled for user. Click connect. I'm going to use the connection that we've already established. And this is the event that we need to test again. So click test, click yes. And then let's go ahead and cancel an event that we have. So you can cancel an event in any different ways, but I guess as a coach, you probably will be canceling your events on your coachee's behalf if they are asking you to cancel or reschedule. So I'm just going to go ahead into Calendly and I'm going to cancel the already scheduled event. Okay, so here's the scheduled events view in my Calendly account. And this is the 8 p.m. meeting that we have just created. So I'm going to go inside that meeting and I'm going to click cancel. Okay, now that I've canceled this event, Pabbly caught some data from Calendly about the event cancellation. And so we need to take this event out of our Google Sheets. So in order to do that, the first thing we need to do is we need to actually find this event in our Google Sheets. So which action should we select? And we're going to select this action. It's called lookup spreadsheet rows. Let's do a connect. So I already have this Easy Automations account connected. The spreadsheet's correct, the sheet is correct. Now, what's the value that we're going to be looking for? And the value here is indeed the Zoom meeting ID. So it's the location value. It's this value here. And we need to also select the column where we're going to be looking for it. And the column needs to be in the form of the code of the column. So let's go back to our sheet and let's look at the code of the column. So we are looking for column C. Cool, no problem. So let's just type C. Boom. Okay, so now we need to click save and test request. And once we do that, it will locate this record using the Zoom ID. And so it looks like it did locate this record, and now we need to delete it. So we're gonna add another action here. It's not Google, it's Google Sheets. And in this action, we need to delete the row. Let's find delete sheet. Nope, we need to delete the row. That's what we need. So this is the account. The spreadsheet's correct, the sheet's correct. Now we need the start row number, and the row number should come from the previous step. So row index this is the one. Now let's just make sure that we don't have any other data. No, we don't. So I'm doing this for the first time in Pabbly, guys. Okay, so row index is row number 2. And let's just make sure that it's correct. So let's go back into our sheet, and indeed, this is it's the row number 2. Excellent. So let's go back into Pabbly, and the end row number, well, the end row number needs to be exactly the same because we only need to delete one row. And so let's click save and send test request. And if everything's done correctly, this record will be gone. So let's do it. Boom. It looks like it worked, but did it work? Not yet, it hasn't. Maybe let's reload the sheet and see if it actually worked. And it hasn't worked for some reason. Why hasn't it worked? Let's have a look. This is weird. I should have created row index 2. Enter the starting row number to delete. The deletion will start from the row immediately following the specified start row, which means that this needs to be from 1 to 2. It will delete all rows up to and including the specified row. So if you enter 3 as the end row number, all rows until row 3 will be deleted. Okay, so this needs to go from 1 to 2. That's what it needs to do. Okay, so no problem. In which case we're going to use number formatter. And so we're going to take format number, perform math operation. There you go. This is what we need. So we're going to take this number, which is the row index, and we're going to subtract. We're going to subtract 1. Operation subtract, comma separated values to perform the operation. Yes, there you go. So the result should be 1. Boom, done. Okay, and then for start row number, this will be this little guy here, and the end row number will be indeed the row index. So if we do this, then row number 2 should be deleted. And let's do it again and see if it works this time. Boom, the row is deleted. Okay, so that's how we're gonna do it, guys. Again, I'm doing this with Pabbly for the first time, but you can see how easy it is to set up these automations. Okay, cool. So we now have 2 workflows that we've done. One of them, it logs the meetings. The other one deletes the meetings. Now, do we need the third workflow to look after the situations when, for example, your client reschedules the meeting? And the answer is no, because when a client reschedules the meeting in Calendly, what Calendly actually does is it deletes the original meeting and schedules a new one. That's it. So you don't need a separate workflow for meetings that have been rescheduled. Okay, so now this is done, let's move on. Okay, so I'm back into my Pabbly folder, and what we're gonna do now is we're gonna create a workflow that catches Zoom recordings and then uploads them to a Google Drive and then sends them to Deepgram for transcription. So let's go ahead and create another workflow. And this one we're going to call Zoom recording catcher. So the trigger event here will be Zoom triggers here in Pabbly. So Pabbly gives us all of these instructions for you to follow to set up this connection, but there's no need for you to do that. We can just do it together online. So get into your Zoom account. So this is my Zoom account. I've just logged in. Obviously this is all blurred. Apologies for that. Yours won't be blurred. And then from the menu here on the left, just scroll down, go to Advanced, and from Advanced, go to App Marketplace. In the App Marketplace, go to Develop. Now, if you haven't signed in, so sign in as well with your account, the same account that you use with Zoom. So go to Develop, Build an App, and within that, click Create on Webhook Only. Give the app a name, so I'm going to call it Pabbly Coaching Automation Test. Okay, click Create, and then this says you need to add some information here. So Pabbly Coaching Automation Test, short description, my test app, developer contact information. So my name's Evgeny. I'm just gonna give them my personal email address, and that's it. Don't have any links to any of that. Okay, so now we came to this screen where you have this feature here, secret token. So copy secret token and then add it into your app in Pabbly. So go back to Pabbly and add your secret token here, and then click Save. So as soon as this happens, Pabbly creates a webhook URL for you. So copy this webhook URL. So select this URL, copy it, go back to Zoom App Marketplace, enable event subscriptions here, click Add Event Subscription, type in the name of the event, completed recordings, event notification endpoint URL. This is what Pabbly gave you, so paste it into here, and then under Add Events, click Add Events, go to Recording, and tick all recordings I've completed. Click Done, and then click Continue, Leave. This says you need a company name, add feature event subscription. Didn't work out, okay, no problem. Tell you what happened, we didn't save. So go back to information, so company name, it was a company name. So Evgeny Bik is my company name. Continue, copy. Now you don't need to copy the token, so just do event subscription, add event, completed recordings. Let's pick events, recording, all events completed, and then notification endpoint URL. Nope, that's not the one. We need to take the one from Pabbly. There it is. So I'm going back to my app marketplace, paste it here, click Save. This is what we didn't do last time, okay? So this is done, and then you go to continue. It needs validation. Okay, no problem. Let's validate it. In order to validate it, you go back to Pabbly and you do save and send a test request. So you click yes, and it's going to wait for a test request. No problem. We go back here, we click validate, and hopefully it's going to send some data to Pabbly. Let's go back to Pabbly. Boom. It's waiting a little bit. Or maybe nothing will happen, in which case it's absolutely fine. But it's validated that address in the app marketplace. So this is fine. Click save, click continue. Boom. So the app is working. So we don't need this window anymore. You can close it. Let's get back to Pabbly. Okay, so now we do need to send some data to Pabbly. So the way that we're going to do this is we're actually going to log in. We're actually going to create a meeting. We're going to record something in this Zoom meeting, and then we're going to stop our recording so that Zoom can fire the completed recording event into Pabbly, and Pabbly can catch the data. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do this right in front of you. So let me launch Zoom. Okay, so now we need to actually send an event to Zoom for it to capture the event data. And in order to do that, we need to start a meeting, and that meeting needs to have recording enabled, and we need to end the meeting, which will end the recording. And as soon as that happens, you will get an email saying that a recording is available to view, and Pabbly will get some data into this webhook URL with the stuff that we need to take this automation forward. Now, it's important for us to make sure, and for you to make sure, that the simple response toggle has been switched off. I'm not going to go into too much detail what happens if this simple response is switched on, but let's just say for your convenience and in order to future-proof this automation, make sure that this simple response trigger is switched off. Okay, so let's actually start a meeting here. So this is my Zoom, and you can just do it by starting a new meeting. I'm just going to disable starting with video because we don't need video. We do need video. Let me correct myself. So we're going to start with video. And there it is. This is me through my MacBook camera. Okay, so there's been some video, blah, 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 blah. As you can see, the meeting is recording and we're going to end it now. Apologies for the mess behind me. Okay, so at the moment, Zoom is busy compressing, decompressing, and processing that video. And as soon as that video is done, and as soon as the recording is available to download, it's going to send you an email and it's going to send the webhook data here into Pabbly. So I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to wait until that data comes through. And when it comes through, we're going to take things forward. Okay, so the recording is finished and Pabbly has received some data. So let's have what we have here. So here we've got a ton of data from Zoom, which we will use going forward. So the piece of data that we need is here in the payload object recording files. And if we just expand this a little bit to show you. Now, I know this looks like gibberish, but this is called JSON notation. So this is how software communicates over the internet to pass data. And it's absolutely fine. We're going to deal with this gibberish of data very simply. So for now, let's just inspect what we have in here. So this part of the data that Pabbly has received has the recording files. Now, the number of recording files depends on what was happening in your meeting. For example, if you only had audio in your meeting, there will be one file. If you had audio and video, which means video, so if you had a video meeting with someone, then Zoom will capture the audio track separately and it will capture the video together with the audio. But you will get two files, one a pure audio recording and then a video recording. Now, if you have other things going on in that meeting, such as chat, for example, or you have screen share, whiteboard, all of those files will start adding up. And yet, the only two files that we need to extract is the audio file and the video file, the download links, because we want to transfer the video file into your Google Drive and then send the link to that Google Drive to your client. And then we want to pass the audio file into Deepgram so that Deepgram could transcribe it, and then you can use that transcription to create an Openai summary. So this information is in this pile of data, and this pile of data is called an array, and an array is just a fancy way to denote a list of data. So it's absolutely fine. We can work with this array very easily. In order to do that, we're going to do two things. First of all, we're going to use an amazing module by Pabbly. It's called Code by Pabbly. So I'm going here into Code by Pabbly, and we're going to use run JavaScript. And so what we're actually going to do is we're going to run a JavaScript snippet in order to process this piece of data. So now, I am not a developer, I'm not a coder, I have no idea how to generate JavaScript snippets. So I'm going to use my best friend to help me with that, and that is ChatGPT. Let's go ahead and do it. So here we go. I'm inside ChatGPT, and I'm going to assume that you only have the free version of ChatGPT. So you're going to be using ChatGPT 3.5. If you do have a subscription to ChatGPT Plus and you can use GPT-4, that's even better. But I'm just going to assume you have the free version. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in Pabbly and we're going to copy this entire pile of data, and we're going to use GPT 3.5 in this case to help us generate a JavaScript snippet that isolates the down URL just for the video file. Let's do it. Okay, so here is the array of data, and you can use quotes just to give GPT an idea where your instructions begin and end. And the instruction is generate a JavaScript snippet that isolates the download URL for the audio underscore for the audio file. It's just not underscore anything. Boom. And let's see what it does. Okay, so it generates. So what it does at the moment, so it took all of this data. So this, you know, that gibberish up here that we pasted, it just created a nice, pretty way. So it prettified the data, laid it out, but this is essentially our data, okay? And then we're going into here, and it says, okay, so const audio download URL, data find item, where file type is M4A, which indeed is the audio file. And so what it does, this snippet, and again, I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder, but it's very simple. It says, right, let data be this array, okay? And then it says, find in this data, let this variable be in this data, find an item where, an item is the array item, where the item file type is M4, and this is the M4A. There you go. Sorry, this file type is M4A, and this is the audio only file. So in which case, all we need to do is copy this snippet, paste it into Pabbly, map this data into here, and output this download URL. So all I'm going to do now, if you didn't understand anything that I've just said, basically take this snippet, copy code. Once you've copied the code, go back into Pabbly, go into code by Pabbly, paste it there. Okay, there you go. Now, instead of data, so see from these square parentheses, so all the way, all this stuff up until the semicolon right here, delete it, right? And then go into here, into Zoom, and insert the recording files bit. Just click here, boom. So all we did is we took this bit from here and we passed it on to the code by Pabbly module here as data for the JavaScript code, okay? Now, the only thing you need to change here is rather than having console log, you need to change this little bit to return, which means display or output, okay? So let's do save and send test, and simple response is good here. Okay, and boom, here we have the isolated download URL just for the audio file. Okay, well, let's actually do a couple of things. First of all, let's rename this module here so that it doesn't just say code by Pabbly. So let's rename, and let's call it isolate audio download. And let's do the same for video. So all we're going to do is we're going to copy this step, and we're going to paste this step. It will paste right below. And all of the inputs are exactly the same, but what we need to change, the type of the file that we're looking for. So now Zoom stores audio as M4A files, but let's just have a look at how it stores video files. So let's go back to the original data, and let's just, I know this looks terrible, right? But let's just look for the video file. Can we find it? Okay, so let's see, type M4A, and then another type MP4. Look at this, MP4. And what sort of file is this? What sort of file is this? Let's have a look. So this is type shared screen with speaker view. There you go. So this is your video file. There are only two files here. There's only the audio file, which is your M4A file here. Look at this. We're going to go down here, and we're going to find recording type, audio only. So that is your audio only file. We've done that. So we need the video file, and the video file is your MP4, in which case we're going to copy that. I'm going to go back to our second module here. It says isolate audio download. Now let's rename it. Let's make sure that we're renaming the right file. Sorry, the right module. So this one is audio. This one's going to be video. Rename isolate video download. And instead of M4A, we're going to type in or paste, if you're as lazy as I am, MP4. And let's see if it's going to do it. So save and test, and lo and behold, there is a download there. Boom. And let's just make sure that it's a different file, right? It didn't just give us the same file. So supposedly the video download ends with xk5gnb, and in here it's a different file. Boom. Okay, so we've got two URLs, one for the audio meeting download and the one for video. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is let's get Pabbly to grab that video file and dump it into our Google account. Now, in order for Pabbly to be able to do that, we need to create a folder. So let's go into our Google account. So this is where my spreadsheet is, and I'm just going to go into my drive. Okay, so we're in my Google Drive. Don't worry about all these blurry stuff. I just blurred it for privacy purposes, but what you need to do is you need to create a folder, and in that folder you need to call coaching recording. So call it whatever else you want. So once you've done that and that folder is here, you need to change the sharing permissions. So in order to change the sharing permissions, you need to click on these three dots here and click share. And within the share, you need to change the general access to anyone with a link. So that is done. And what that means is that you will be able to share links to coaching recordings from there. So, okay, so this one is done. Now let's go back to Pabbly and let's create the next module. And the next module will be Google Drive. And within Google Drive, you need to select a module that says upload large file. Large file will upload anything between 1 megabyte or less to 500 megabytes. And the reason why you can't use a different one is because uploading large files takes time. And so there's a very specific workflow here in Pabbly to take care of uploading large files. And so let's click connect. And as you can see, I already have a different connection here, but we need to establish a connection with my Easy Automations account, which I've been using for our spreadsheets. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to call it EA account. Now I'm going to pause the recording here. You can go with the same flow, and then I will see you when I've connected my account. Okay, so I have now established a connection with my new account, and let's fill out everything that we need for this module. So here it says file URL. Now the file URL here is indeed the isolated video download URL that we have just isolated. So that's the one. Click on that one. Okay. File name. Okay. Well, let's create a file name. Now, I don't know how you want to name these files, but the way that I go about it is I go into my Zoom, I take the meeting topic, then I create a dash, then I'm using just pick an ID, any ID that you want. I mean, pick a object UUID. So this is the unique meeting. So do that, and then dot, and the file is M4A, which is, oh no, it's actually MP4, isn't it? It's MP4. For our video, it is MP4 indeed. So this is MP4. So make sure that the extension is MP4. Let me just disable Grammarly here. MP4, make sure to give it the extension. Now, it wants the folder ID. Now, where do you get the folder ID? Well, let's go back into the folder we've just created. Okay, so this is the coaching recordings folder that we have created. So the first thing you need to do is double click on it. And once you've double clicked on it, you see the empty folder. You need to go into the URL and you need to copy the folder ID in the URL. Let me show you. Okay, so this is the URL of the location where I am right now. When I'm in this folder, I am in this URL. I just copied it here into my Apple Note because I'm using a different browser. It doesn't allow me to show you the URL. So your folder ID is this guy here. I'm just going to make it in bold for you. So all you need to do is copy this little guy here and go back into Pabbly and paste it into here. And that's it. Now, let's read some instructions here. So on pressing save and set test request, the file upload will start. Yes. In response, you will receive a request ID of the upload file. Okay, so what is happening here? It's called asynchronous upload, which means that we give an instruction to Pabbly Google Drive module to start uploading the file. It's uploading the file in the background. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to press save and test request, and we have the request ID. Now, if your file is 100 megs or 150 megs, it's going to take some time for this upload to happen. So while Pabbly is uploading your file, you want to give it some time before you try and do something with it. So Pabbly has a great module, which is indeed a delay. So let's use a delay. And Pabbly recommends that we delay for 8 minutes. So I'm going to use their recommendation. And I think, look, it's not going to take more than 8 minutes to download a meeting video file and plonk it into Google Drive. But if you're concerned, I mean, you can put 10 minutes or anything else right now. So let's just save and test, and it's done. So delay has run. And now we're going to assume that everything worked fine. So Pabbly managed to grab our Zoom video file and upload it into Google Drive. So let's get the download URL from Google Drive. So let's create another Pabbly module. So it's going to be another Google Drive. And the module here is, let's go down, and is it upload? There you go, get file upload status. That's what we need. So we do click connect, and now this is my Easy Automations account. I'm going to use it. And then we need to map that request ID that we got in this module here in the upload big file module. So let's find that module. There it is, Google Drive, upload large file. And this is the request ID. Boom. Now let's save and test and see what it's going to tell us. It's complete, as you can see. And look, this is our file name that we gave it. Remember, we were giving it a file name. So this is done. And we have the web view download link. There it is. And so this is the link that you can share in an email to your client, and they will be able to see that file, and they will be able to download their meeting recording. Okay, so one job's done. We have the meeting in the Google Drive. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to send the audio file to Deepgram for transcription. Now, Deepgram doesn't have a direct integration with Pabbly, which is absolutely fine. We're just going to use Deepgram's API to do that. So let's go ahead and add an API module here in Pabbly. So it's this one. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, in order to fill out an API module anywhere with any information, you need to go to the actual provider of the API, in which case Deepgram, and you want to read their documentation. And honestly, it's not difficult at all. So the first thing that you want to do is go to Deepgram, and you want to go to your dashboard. So here, if you log into Deepgram, actually you're going to end up in their dashboard. So there you go. So you need to create an API key, give it a name, set permissions to owner, and set expiration as never. Create key, copy the API key that Deepgram will produce for you, then put it somewhere safe and store it, because you're going to need it right now. So let us go back to Pabbly. So what you want to do is add a method here. It's called post, and what you want to do is create a header. So click add headers, and the header needs to be called authorization, and that is your way to tell Pabbly that it is you, the account holder, who is actually asking it to do stuff for you. And what you're going to do is, in the value section here, I'm going to type in token space, and then you're going to copy and paste that API key that Deepgram provided for you. Okay, great. Now we need to fill out the endpoint URL bit here. So let's go to Deepgram. From your dashboard, you go to docs, and this takes you to API documentation. And from API docs, you go to API reference. And you need to go to pre-recorded here, because our meetings are pre-recorded. And this URL here, this is your API endpoint. So copy it into the clipboard and paste it here. Okay, now we need to add some parameters. So we need to tell Deepgram, give it some information about, well, where's the file that it needs to transcribe, what model it should use, that sort of stuff. So in order to add parameters here, you're going to be adding these parameters into the endpoint URL. How do you add parameters? Very simple. So you put a question mark, and then we're going to start listing parameters. So leave that question mark here. Go back to the Deepgram API docs, and let's add some parameters. So the first parameter we're gonna is model. Now, if we don't add the parameter, Deepgram will use the general model. We don't want that, because Deepgram has a fantastic new model, which is called Nova 2. So we're gonna put model equals Nova 2. Okay, that's done. Then, because this is not the only parameter that we're going to use many parameters. So we need to add the ampersand sign, like so. Okay, and let's add another parameter. So I'll go back to the API docs. Let's see what else we need. So model, tier, version, language, detect language. Let's add detect language, and let's set it to true. Now the reason why I want to set detect language to true is because if you're like me and you are running multilingual coaching sessions, you might as well get Deepgram to automatically detect the languages that you're using. Or sometimes you get multilingual clients, and you may start your coaching session in one language and then transition to a different language So Deepgram will be able to pick those up. Okay. Is that all parameters? No, I don't think so. So let's put another ampersand sign there. And let's see what else we want to add. Okay, detect language punctuate. Yes, we want punctuate. We want Deepgram to try and punctuate because you want Deepgram to do as much work as possible so that your summarization of the transcript with GPT will be as accurate as possible. So paste punctuate here and also equals true. But we're not done yet, so add another ampersand sign, and then let's go back to pre-recorded bits here, and let's go to punctuate, for anti-redact. We don't want any of that, diarization, we don't want any of that. What we do want, however, is callback. So callback is the URL where you want Deepgram to send the completed transcript to. Now, technically speaking, Deepgram can process transcripts very quickly. So it can process an hour worth of audio in 30 seconds. That is very, very, very fast. The problem is Pabbly's individual modules don't run for as long. They only run for 25 seconds, I believe. So you have to use the callback URL so that you tell Deepgram where your file is, what model to use, yada, yada, yada. You send all the information to Deepgram. It starts processing your file, and then when it's done, it sends that information with the transcript to a different URL. So that's why you need a callback. So copy this callback and add it here, and then do equal sign, and then let's actually create this URL where Deepgram should be sending the information to. So just click save here, and then what you want to do is just open another window with Pabbly. So I'm just gonna duplicate my window here, and I'm going to open another window with Pabbly, and I'm going to go ahead and create another workflow. So go back to your folder where you started creating all these workflows and just create another one. And once you've created another one, and call it transcript catcher, right? Because that's what it is. We'll be catching the transcript. So I'm going to see you when I would have opened another workflow. Okay, so I've created this new workflow called transcript catcher, and so the trigger for this workflow will be a webhook. So this is the webhook. Copy the webhook URL into your clipboard, and then go back to the previous workflow and paste it here after callback, like so. Okay, now we're not done yet. So now you need to tell Deepgram where the file to transcribe is actually stored. So create some parameters. So click here, tick this box, set parameters, and there's only one parameter they need to add here, which is the URL. And in the URL, what we'll be doing is we will be mapping your isolated audio URL in here. Yeah, remember, so you use the video URL to upload the video to Google Drive, but we're going to use the audio URL to supply it to Deepgram because it doesn't need to waste all those bandwidth and megabytes to download your video URL. Now, this is what you're going to be doing when the workflow is running. But at the moment, if we were to try and test this module, imagine Deepgram will be downloading our silent recording, so it won't be able to transcribe anything and it won't be able to give us a transcript. So for now, we won't be mapping this piece of data here. Instead, we're going to go back to Deepgram and use one of their test files. Because why not? They give us this URL. I believe this is actually a little snippet from Steve Jobs' speech. Don't hold me to account on that, but I think that's kind of what it is. So we're going to put it here, and we're going to hit save and test request, and we're going to get Deepgram to transcribe their own test file and then send a transcription. I'm just going to open this other workflow to this file here where we're waiting for the webhook response. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do that. And this one says insufficient permissions. Project does not have access to the requested model. Oh no. It doesn't want to give us the Nova 2 model. Why does it not want that? Let's have a look. Now, I think I figured out what the problem is. So it's not Nova 2, it's Nova 2 EA. I think that is the correct model. So let's try and run this request like so and see if it's going to work this time. Huh? Excellent. So it doesn't work again, and it doesn't have the permission to the right model. So I figured out what the problem is. Again, this is me, spelling mistake. So it's not Nova-2-E-A. It is Nova-2-EA. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. But hey, I decided not to cut this part of the recording out because that just demonstrates to you how, in reality, this is how you automate stuff. You try things don't work, you make a mistake, it doesn't work. And so let's try and test this request right now. And lo and behold, it worked. And so what it does is it gives you that request ID. And that request ID is something that we need to put in the Google spreadsheet that we have created. So let us get back to the Google spreadsheet. So add another module, type in Google spreadsheet, Google Sheet. Okay, so in Google Sheet, and the action is we need to find lookup spreadsheet rows, connect, okay, and then we need to look up by column. So we're going to use the column with the Zoom meeting ID because that identifies our meeting. That is a unique ID for our meeting to find the right row. So we're just going to use row C. So let's enter row C into our column here. And then the lookup value is, well, the lookup value needs to be the ID. So this is, let's find the meeting ID. So there you go. So object ID that is it. And so that is about it. Now, we need to add some dummy data into this table because otherwise Deepgram won't be able to find anything. So let's just see what it's going to be looking for. So it's this meeting 817.9110. So I'm just going to copy this number and I'm going to put it here so that Pabbly module will be able to find something. Okay, let's do that. So let's click save and test, and hopefully it's going to all work out as it sometimes does. Oh, there you go. It found the row, so it's row index number 2, which is perfect. So all we need to do here is we need to update this row. So Google Sheets, and the module will be to update a row. Use the search bar. We use it often. It's going to save you a lot of time. So same connection. And you need the row index, which is something they're going to map from the previous step, which is this one. And then what we're going to be updating here is the Deepgram ID, which is what it would have produced from step number 7. There you go. It's our request ID. Okay, so let's do save and test it and see if data has been added. So the data is here. Excellent. So far, this is all done. Don't worry about the fact that none of this is filled out. Remember, we deleted this row previously. So when we test the full automation, it's all going to work. Okay, so we're done with this workflow, right? This is where it ends. But then we need to go back and we need to go to, but now we need to go to our transcript catcher workflow and to see if Deepgram actually did what we asked it to do and if it sent us the transcript to the URL that we specified. So I'm gonna open this URL and lo and behold, here it is. Now let's have a look at where the transcript actually is here. And so there you go. So you have results, channel 0 alternatives, 0 transcript. And this is the whole transcript all the way here. So this is done. This is what we're going to be feeding into GPT. Now ignore all of this other data because this is basically all the words with milliseconds. You don't need that. You're not building any such apps. All right, so what are we going to do with this data? We're going to go back into here, and what we're also going to do is when we're updating Google Sheets, what we forgot to do is we forgot to update another important field, which is the download URL. So it's that Zoom download link. Actually, what we're going to place into here is we're going to place this a little bit. Remember, we uploaded file into the video file into the Google Drive. So this module number 6 generated the web view link for us. So this is the one that we need to add in there. So let's actually do that to make sure that it works. And yep, we've got the Zoom download link. Because again, we want to send that download link to our coaching clients along with the summary of the coaching session. So it's essential for us to store this information because otherwise it just doesn't flow between the workflows. Okay, cool. So let us go back into this module here. So we received the information from Deepgram. Now, I suggest that the first thing we do before we start doing anything else is add a little delay. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, remember, in the previous workflow step, we have 2 modules, actually 3 modules side by side here. Let me just close these up so that you see what I'm talking about. So we have this API module, which is the Deepgram. Let me actually go ahead and rename it. So request Deepgram transcription. Okay. So we've got this module, and then immediately we have Google Sheets modules, right? The find a row and update the row. But these three actions are happening almost immediately. And so we want the other workflow to give these two actions some time to happen. So you're going to get Deepgram calling on the other workflow's webhook URL. And only after that, you have these two steps happening. So what you want to do is you want to add maybe 2 minutes delay to allow these steps to work through. So we're going to add a delay for 2 minutes first. It's not going to delay things for too long, and yet it's going to save you a lot of headache. Okay, so after this is done, we want to locate that Google row that is containing all of this information. And on this occasion, we're going to use the request ID to locate that Google row. And the request, when I say request ID, I mean request ID from Deepgram, because it's also unique. So we are going to say here again, Google Sheets, and the module is lookup the spreadsheet rows, and we're going to use the same account. Now this time we're going to use the Deepgram ID, so the column for us to look up will be different. So while Pabbly's thinking, let's see which column we're going to use. It's column G. Okay, cool. So let's go to column G. Pabbly is still thinking, so maybe just reload the window a little bit and see if Pabbly managed to add the required module. And we've got the delay, but it still hasn't added the Google Sheets. No problem. We're going to do it again. Google Sheets module. Let's do it. There you go. So look up spreadsheet rows, connect. Let's do this again. Come on, Pabbly, work for us. We need you to work for us. And there we go. After thinking for a million years, it finally did it. Right. So select the sheet. It is, let's just reload. Sheet number 1, lookup columns is column G, and the lookup value is from this webhook, it is the request ID. Let's see if it will actually find that request ID in the row associated with that request ID. There we go. And it actually found it. Excellent. So it's found the row. Beautiful. Now let's keep going. So what do we need to do then? Well, we need to create a summary of the coaching session from the transcript that we have. So for that, we need to use an Openai module where we're going to instruct a GPT module to do it for us. So let's open Openai, and the action event is ChatGPT. I don't know why they call it ChatGPT, because it's just GPT. Now I already have my account here, so I'm not going to do this again, but just create another connection, copy and paste your API key, and that's it. This is done. And where do you generate the API key? If you go back to your dashboard and you go here, it's right here. View API keys, and you'll be able to create another one, right? So we're not going to waste time on that. So, okay, cool. Let's go, and we're just going to use my Openai connection. And the model that we're going to select, it's not listed here, right? It's not GPT-4, it's not GPT-3 Turbo in any of these. It is something else. So we're going to map it, and we're going to create GPT. Actually, it is 3.5. Yep. So it's going to be GPT 3.5 dash turbo dash 16K. So you need this 16K module because you're going to have a very large transcript of 1 hour of coaching session or 1 hour and a half of a coaching session. You need a model that has a large context window, and that is the ideal model for that. Right, now, what sort of prompt do you want to add here? And that is really up to you. So it depends on what coaching session you run. And if you're watching this video because you have some sort of other use case for this, you need to think about what you want the model to do. So in my case, I am asking the model to summarize the main feedback that I gave to the candidate. So I would write something along the lines of, this is a transcript of an interview coaching session between a student and a coach. And then what you do is you map the transcript into here. So go into webhook, which is where you receive the transcript from Deepgram, and then go into where it says, there you go, that's the full transcript. Boom. So that's the whole thing. Now don't forget to close the quotes here, full stop. Okay, so you've provided the context. Now what do you want the model to do? Summarize and list the key feedback to the student. Output as a list of feedback points addressed to the student directly. That should work. Now, what you want to do is when you start testing the whole workflow with the live files and the actual files, the actual transcripts, you probably want to test different ways of prompting the model, because sometimes, as you know, GPT will hallucinate, and especially because we're using GPT 3.5 and it hallucinates plentifully, but generally speaking, this will work. Now I'm gonna click save and test request right now, and it's gonna use this text, and it's gonna use this prompt to try and summarize it as a coaching session. It's going to be horrible because it's going to think it's a coaching session, but it's not a coaching session. So it will hallucinate massively. But let's just try this, shall we? And see what we're going to get. Right, so we got something. Let's see. This is what we got. The speech analytics space offers numerous KPIs, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, it tried, okay? But to be honest, if you think about a situation where you're actually going to supply a real transcript of a real coaching session, it will produce something like this. It will get the main bits of feedback out of your coaching transcript, and it will output them here so that then you will be able to send them to your coaching client as an email. Okay, so now we have everything we need, and we can send an email to your coaching client. So I don't know how you want to do this. You can do this in many different ways. You can use a transactional email sender. You can use Gmail. I use Gmail because that makes it very personal. So I'm just going to go ahead and use Gmail. So here we go. This is Gmail, send email, and then click connect. And then, so I already have a Gmail connection here, but just go ahead and add a new connection here with your Gmail. You can have a free Gmail account, paid Gmail account, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to use this one. This is my business Gmail account. Okay, so recipient email address. Now here in the recipient email address, you're going to be mapping whatever came out here. Now, we don't have anything here because if you look at our spreadsheet, we left this blank. Now, don't worry about it, because when Calendly actually logs their meeting into here, you will have the customer email and you will have everything else, all this other data in here. So let's just get back to this Pabbly module and let's map this email here, and then CC nothing, BCC nothing, sender name, who are you? So I'm gonna put Evgeny, the automation coach. All right, email subject, your coaching transcript. Oh, it's not a transcript, your coaching video and summary. That's what it is, that's what we're sending. Silly Evgeny. Okay, now reply to nothing. Now this is where you select the email content type, and to be honest, it's up to you in what format you send your coaching summary and email. You can send it with a plain text email, and it's absolutely fine. When you add the link to the coaching recording to a plain text, if your client is reading that email in a contemporary modern email software, it will automatically convert that URL into a link. However, I think a better way to send that email is HTML. Now, the problem is that if your email content is full HTML, the entire content has to be HTML. And at the moment, if we go back to the GPT's output, this is plain text. So we need to change something about this. Now, the great thing about GPT is that it can output the result in any format that you want. So why don't we ask it to output what it's generating, which is the summary of the key coaching points, as an ordered list in HTML, where an ordered list is basically just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all it is. It's just HTML speak by a numbered list. So we're going to change the prompt here. It says summarize and list the key feedback to the student, output as a list of feedback points addressed to the student directly, output present output as an ordered list in HTML. Okay, and let's just rerun the same module and see how it changes this output. Okay, so let's have a look. There you go. So this is the content, and lo and behold, it's an ordered list. Perfect. So what we're going to do here is, let's get back to the email content. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you probably want to add something along the lines of, hey, so-and-so, here's your link to your coaching recording, and add a link. In which case, all you need to do is you need to go into Google and type in what you see is what you get, HTML, and that's it. The first thing that you're gonna get is that HTML editor. And I've already started writing here. So just draft this email to your client. So let's go, hey there, my favorite way to address people whose names I know. Here's the link to your coaching recording. Okay, now just give it a couple of enters or one. Now this coaching recording will be a link, right? So what you need to do is just mark this, highlight this, and create a link, and select the protocol as HTTPS, and then just add a placeholder link for now. So I don't know, www.whoknowswhat.com/blah blah. Okay, so this is your placeholder link for now, and let's keep going. Here are the main points of feedback from our coaching session column, and this is where just add a couple of items. And this is the ordered list, by the way. This is what you're gonna end up. But this is just a placeholder in here, and then sign it. Best regards, Evgeny. Okay, beautiful. Now go to HTML source code, and this is what you want. So copy this whole thing, and then go back to Pabbly and paste it here. Now the only thing you want to do is you want to do some substitutions. So first things first, you need to substitute this URL, because you don't want to send them to whoknowwhat.com/blah blah. So delete this URL that's in between the quotes, and then map a different piece of data in here. Okay, so it's not allowing you to map anything from here because it is stuck, and when Pabbly is stuck, it is stuck. Not a problem. Click save, and then go back to the workflow. So, and there you go, you can start mapping stuff. Okay, so from the Google Sheets, get the download URL link and map it here. As you can see, so this is where the list of the feedback points is starting. See this tag here? It says OL, which is ordered list. So this is where the list starts. So all you need to do is select this bit between the opening tag of OL and the closing tag, see, /OL. So select this whole bit here, like so, okay, delete it, and map what you received from GPT, like so. Excellent. So that generates the email, right? Shall we test it? Let me send this one to me. So let's see. So the customer email here is not identified. So let me just select my email address, evgeny@evgenybeck.com. Okay, you have to change that later on, but hey, let's do that. Let's send it through, see what happens. Okay, there we go. So it's sent. Now I'm gonna go, I've already received a notification on my mobile phone that I've got the email. So I'm just gonna get into my Gmail and see what I have in there. So here's the email that I received. And as you can see, it's all here. So here are the points of feedback, nicely arranged as an ordered list in HTML. Here is the attachment that Gmail correctly thumbnailed because it's uploaded into the Google Drive. And let's just see if we can download this recording. So I'm just going to click on it, and there it is. I can see that recording. Let's play it. Hey, there you go. This is it. Okay, there you go. So the whole thing worked. It's fine. I think we're happy with that. Now, the last thing that you want to go is you want to update that Google Sheet with all of the data that you've generated so that you don't lose it. See, you don't need it for this automation here, but just spend one operation in Pabbly to just store this data and save it. You never know when you're going to need this data later on. So let's just update the row and let us select the same account. And then row index is from this module here, which is 2. And then customer email will be there, client name will be there, Zoom meeting ID will be there, download link will be there. Now let's save the transcript from here. So let's find it here, transcript, there it is. And let's save the summary. And the summary is the GPT bit in HTML the list. And let's just save and test and see if we've got all this data here, and there you go. Cool. So we've done everything. Now, before we go and test the entire workflow, what we need to do is we need to go back to all of our workflows in Pabbly and just make sure that everything is mapped. So in this workflow, what you need to make sure is mapped is the email address, because we hard-coded it here, and that's actually not what we want. We want the email to come from here. Click save. Always click save when you make changes, or save and test, but always save. Otherwise, your automations will break and you'll have no idea where you lost it. Okay, now this is done. Now let's go to the previous workflow here, and let's just go bit by bit and make sure that everything is mapped. So everything's mapped here, everything's mapped here. In the Google Drive, this is mapped. Folder, it's hard-coded, but that's correct that it's hard-coded. Delay, we got the file request ID. This is perfect. Deepgram API endpoints correct. This is correct. Aha, see? URL. So this should be mapped because we're using the test file from Deepgram. We shouldn't do that. We should use the audio download here. Okay, done. Save. Always save. You don't need to test it, right? So just save it, and then in the Google Sheets, let's make sure nothing is... Okay, so lookup column is hard-coded here. See, that's absolutely fine. This is what we need. So this is all good. This is all good. And then our updates are... Customer email should be there. This is fine. This is fine. Zoom link. This is fine. Okay. Request ID. This is fine. Okay. Manically pressing save everywhere all the time. Cool. So this is done. Now let's go to the Calendly meeting loggers and deleters. So you can do it yourself. Just go through both of these workflows. Make sure that everything is in there as it should be. And then in the next step, we're going to test the entire workflow by creating meeting in Calendly. Joining this meeting, I'm going to say some words which Deepgram will then transcribe. ChatGPT will create a coaching summary, and I am hopefully going to get an email. Before we go and test our workflow, what we also need to do, and it's something that I forgot to record previously, is we need to consider adding filters. Now, why would we want to add filters? Well, because if you're like me, you're constantly running lots of different meetings in Zoom. Not all of your meetings in Zoom are your coaching sessions. You probably have plenty of stuff in there that is just meetings, right? Just normal meetings, catch-ups, whatnot. And the last thing you want is these automation workflows to keep on pumping your meetings, downloading them into your Google Drive, then sending them to transcription and sending emails to folks who just book in with you for your Calendly meeting just to have a chat. So from that perspective, it is a very easy thing to control, okay? And the way that we're going to control it is with filters. Now, Pabbly, like Zapier, like Make, like all of these other automation platforms, makes it very easy for us to implement filters. So let's open our 4 workflows, right? So I've got here in front of me, I've got the transcript catcher. Then I also have Zoom recording catcher, Calendly meeting deleter, and Calendly meeting logger, right? And let's just see what filters we need and which filters we're going to find useful. So let's start with the Calendly meeting logger. So let's scroll down. So here I've got a filter set up, and what I'm filtering for is the name of the meeting, right? And so it is the name of the meeting. So my meeting is called Automation Coaching Test. Your meeting for your coaching event may be called something else. How to be a great parent coaching meeting, whatever. So within the Calendly data that it sends to Pabbly when the meeting is scheduled, let me show you where it is. So if I type in automation, so it shows that it's here in 2 places, in resource 2, resource name, coaching automation test, and it's also in resource 1, payload scheduled event name. So I seriously recommend that you pick this one, the first one, resource 1, payload scheduled event name, as the data item that you're going to be looking out for. And the filter type here, well, it's up to you. If you just want to filter on just the entire name, the full name of your event, so in my case, this would have been the coaching automation test, then you select the filter type equal to. If you just want to make your life easier for you, or if you, for example, have a ton of different meetings that all of them you would want to transcribe and then generate meeting summaries and coaching summaries and send them to the attendees, and they all have something similar in the name, then you can use the filter type contains and then add the value here that actually that you want to filter on. So this is what I'm doing. So I've added a filter on the meeting, on the name of the event type in Calendly. Filter type contains and automation, and always press save whenever you can. So that is one filter, and I don't think we need we don't really need any other filters in the meeting logger. Now let's look at Calendly meeting deleter. So do we need a filter here? So I have added a filter here, exactly the same filter as I've added to the Calendly meeting logger. Do we have to have this filter here? I actually don't think so. But if you want to be on the safe side, so just add the filter here. Okay. Now let's go to the Zoom recording catcher. Okay, so now you've had your Zoom. Now for the Zoom recording catcher, you want to add a filter here, because otherwise, if you don't add a filter here, Pabbly will constantly be trying to download your meeting recordings, even if it is some random recording, and they're going to try to put it in your Google Drive. So you're going to be wasting a lot of Pabbly operations, right? So better stop Pabbly from performing operations with meetings that you actually do not need. So in this case, let's just look at what we've done here. Okay, so now in order to set up the filter here, you need to set up the filter in a slightly smarter way. Why? Because remember, the only thing that's connecting your Zoom meeting and Zoom recording with your Calendly event is the Zoom meeting ID, right? That numeric meeting ID. So Zoom does not know the email addresses of anyone. It does not know any of the internal Calendly meeting IDs that it has. It does not know anything. The only thing that we have done to connect this information together, if you remember, is when we have created the Calendly meeting logger workflow, we added the details about the Calendly meeting into the Google spreadsheet, and we added the Zoom meeting ID in there, right? So we want to make sure that your workflow is only pulling those meeting recordings that have the meeting ID that matches what you added into that spreadsheet. That is how we're going to set up the filter. So how are we going to do this? In order to set up this filter, we're going to add this little step here. So at the moment in your workflow, you don't have these two steps. So go ahead and add the first step, which is Google Sheets lookup spreadsheet rows. And you're going to be looking up in column C, which is where you would have stored the Zoom meeting ID. And your lookup value will be the payload object ID. So from here, if you just scroll down, this is the one, payload object ID. That is the Zoom meeting ID that you would have stored previously. And then what you're going to be filtering on is something else. So something that we haven't shown you previously. So say, for example, if this step where you look for the row in your Google Sheet with that Zoom meeting ID, say if it is successful, then that is essentially, that's our filter, right? So if this row is found, if it exists when Pabbly is trying to look for it, if it returns, right? If the result comes up, yes, this row is found, there is in fact a Zoom meeting ID in there, there's a row with that ID in there, then that's okay. Then the workflow should continue and then manipulate that recording, download it, and all that stuff. So all this filter needs to do is to make sure that the row index, as in the row index, actually exists, so that there is some data there. What happens is, if Pabbly tries to look in your Google Sheet for that Zoom meeting ID and it doesn't find any data, then this module will result with empty data. So it means that the data doesn't exist. So in this case, let me just show you how this works. So I'm going to save and test this event. And in this particular case, this row exists. So the workflow will continue and will move forward. Okay, so that one is done. So this is the filter that we've added here. Now, because we have added the lookup action here to Pabbly, we probably don't need the same lookup action at the end of the workflow, right? So what we can do is we can go back, see lookup spreadsheet rows. This is what we're doing. It's exactly the same action. It's searching for a row in Google Sheets that has that Zoom meeting ID in it. So we don't need it because it's redundant. We've literally just created the same one at the beginning of the workflow. So this one we can delete. But then once we delete it, we need to then update the mapping in the update row, because at the moment it's looking for a row index in the data that doesn't exist, right? So if we go and we just save this little guy here, at some point in time it needs to start barking. Well, it doesn't bark because it still thinks that that piece of data exists, but we're going to delete it because it won't exist anymore, and we're going to map it to here and to row index here, to the step number 2 that we've just created. And we're just going to test it again. We're going to test it and let's see if it's going to find it. Yep, found everything. So cool. All right, now this is all done. Now last workflow is the transcript catcher. So do we need to add any filters here? So this is where Deepgram will send the transcript, and we don't need to do anything here, to be honest, because everything else in here is done automatically. Because here, look, this Google Sheet is looking for that Deepgram request ID in your Google Sheets, and that one is unique. That one is unique to your particular recording and your transcript. So that's it, folks. I think we've added all the last steps. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to Calendly, and I'm going to schedule a meeting with myself. Okay, so I'm in Calendly and I'm going to schedule a meeting with myself for this coaching automation test event. And let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to be Napoleon, and I'm just going to give my email there, and that is done. Okay, so the meeting is scheduled. Now let me open up my calendar. And let me locate that meeting that I've just scheduled. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to launch Zoom immediately right now. And I'm going to attend that meeting. And I'm just going to say a couple of words in that meeting so that Deepgram will have something to transcribe. Okay, so now let's launch Zoom and let's join the meeting and let's record something. So I am going to get into my calendar, and then I'm going to launch Zoom, and then hopefully I'm going to join the meeting. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Okay, so here I am joining the meeting, which is a Zoom meeting. So let me select and this is my FaceTime camera, and I'm using the same mic. Yeah, so all good. So there's enough for the Deepgram to transcribe. So I think we can just end the meeting, and then we're going to wait for the email with the summary and the link to the meeting recording. And if we get that email, it means that everything worked as intended. All right, so I've just received an email from me, and this is the email that we would expect to receive. And there is some basic summary of whatever it is that I tried to say during that recording. But let's just see if the workflow downloaded that recording correctly. Don't look at the summary, because the summary is trying to summarize something that it's not meant to be summarized in the way that I instructed it, as you remember. So let's just try and download that recording and see if we can actually watch it. Let's go ahead. Okay, so it seems to be playing. Now let's have a look here. And then we're going to wait for the email with the summary and the link. Well, there you go. So we have downloaded everything successfully. And so that concludes our tutorial. So everything works well. If you guys want to see something else from me, or if you're struggling with something, just leave me a comment underneath this video, or check out any of the links in the description of this video to help you with your automation challenges. Take care.